You guys, I did not realize my chandelier light still worked. Look how spooky that is. This is perfect for this video. Look at them. Hi guys, welcome over from my TikTok. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of mirrors. I'm going to be doing a full analysis on it, kind of talking about a little bit more of the history and going into some of the theories behind mirrors and some of the folklore. And then I want to talk to you guys about my personal haunting story that originated from a mirror. So you guys know the drill. Sit back, relax, grab a snack, and it's spooky time. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Let me see thy face.
You ugly.
I feel like anytime I sit down to do these videos with you guys, my makeup looks wonky. Yes, it's giving very much Ronald McDonald today. So mirrors have always been this source of superstition. For example, if you break a mirror, apparently your soul breaks too. And this dates back to ancient Roman times. So the one thing mirror-wise I think we all can relate to is Bloody Mary. The game Bloody Mary, I don't know if any of you guys played that as a kid, but apparently we can call on the spirit by saying her name 3, I've also seen versions that say 13 times into a mirror, and we call on the spirit of either Queen Bloody Mary from England or a woman who was accused of witchcraft by the name of Bloody Mary. This is actually nothing new. You can see different versions of Bloody Mary span across all different cultures. And you can see evidence of this all the way back in ancient Greece. Whenever they would look at mirrors, they would wait to see what reflection was staring back at them.
People have been trying to seek out ghosts or divine their futures by looking into a mirror. Typically, the goal is to discern future events by performing a specific ritual, such as looking into a mirror and seeking either a healthy face that looks back at you or a terrifying apparition.
If it was a scary apparition, they would, and if it wasn't, they would probably overcome whatever illness that they were going through. And I completely lost myself in this one thesis that a student made about Mayan art. So this particular student studied hundreds of pieces of Mayan art, ceramics, paintings, pots, so many different things, and she found something very interesting. Her entire thesis was that reflection, whether that be with water or with a mirror, is a connection between the Mayan people and their gods. They would actually strategically place mirrors in their world so that the gods that they were worshiping could have direct access to looking at them, which I think is such an interesting thesis and such an interesting theory. And I kind of relate this to now because have you guys ever heard that you can't be pointing a mirror towards your bed, or you can't have it facing a certain doorway or a certain area, or you can't have 2 mirrors facing each other?
Mirrors, specifically antique, vintage, silver-plated mirrors. You can see that the mirror part is literally chipping off of the silver plate. Mirrors hold energy really strongly. Mirrors are literally portals. Never have 2 mirrors facing each other. That's just a safety rule in general. But the older the mirror, the more people have looked into it. The more energy it's collected, the more things it's seen, the stronger it gets. A lot of you guys have sent in stories about haunted mirrors. A lot of you guys have commented about them in my last video. They're dangerous. They're beautiful. I have one myself and I have experienced some weird things in it, but I know where it came from. It was my great-great-grandmother's. So I feel a little bit more safe with it. Don't get an old mirror you don't know.
I've always wondered as to why that is. Because like if years ago, if this was something that was positive and a way for whatever we were worshiping to see us, why is it something so negative now? And honestly, I actually don't have the answer to that. I still really don't know. But today, people really think that this opens negative portals. So I'm going to be showing one of my TikToks that I did over here. It's really interesting because we ended up getting this animation filter, and a lot of people were responding back to people using the animation filter on their own reflection. Typically, people were using it on photos. When we started using it on our own reflections, people were getting very much criticized for this because they were like, okay, no. You're interacting with something you shouldn't be interacting with. That's not you on the other side of the mirror. That is a anti-you. That is you in a parallel universe, kind of like the tethered from us. And the Institute of Theoretical Physics ended up creating a theory about this, that once the Big Bang hit, we did actually split into 2 different mirror universes. However, it's not quite how we think it is. The mirror universe would be directly opposite of us. So it would go backwards in time, would start at death and then would end at birth back in your mother's womb, which is just a really weird concept to think about. But if you understand that our universe goes linear in time, and if we broke off in the Big Bang, then we would just be going backwards if that was the exact mirror opposite of us. So I understand where that theory is coming from. The other theory that could come into play is the Hugh Everett quantum mechanics theory. And in this theory, there's infinite fractals of infinite possibilities. So, for example, you're watching this video, you decide to pause it right here. Go ahead, pause it. And hopefully you're playing it again now. But you in another universe may have kept this video paused, or may have just closed the video off entirely, and you aren't even finishing this video now. It's kind of weird to think about. Basically, in this theory, every event creates a new universe in every moment. It's super interesting because I've also seen a trend on TikTok discussing this as well. And this is something that I even personally felt like I've experienced myself. There was one time where I had a really big decision to make, and I was sitting at a crossroad with a stop sign right over there, and I could either go one direction to make one decision or turn the car around and go back to make a totally separate decision. And I sat there for so long and then just turned the wheel around. And that decision that I made that night was probably altered my entire life. And I genuinely remember feeling like there was an inner shift when that happened, and when I woke up the next day. It was honestly really crazy, and I don't even think that I would be sitting here talking to you guys today if that decision hadn't have happened. But you could also say that about so many other decisions in your life. I feel like things have to happen just right for you to be where you are sitting right now. To continue on, the other trend that I did was whenever you zoom in with your phone, this is also the same concept of whenever you have two mirrors right next to each other, it starts to create almost like a staircase, and you'll see it start to form over here. So going off what the Mayan thesis was, if this was a portal to another universe to access us to another side, to gods, to something that isn't positive, well, that would create a staircase for them to essentially just walk right in, theoretically. So if these mirrors were a portal, per se, do we really have access to spirits like Bloody Mary, or spirits pretending to be Bloody Mary, or the Candyman, or even the Three Kings ritual? My personal theory, and I am always down to be proven wrong, is that things like the Candyman and Bloody Mary don't really exist. They're just based off of cases such as Queen Bloody Mary and the time where the guy killed the woman after living behind her mirror. If you guys don't know about that case, go to my Instagram. It's on the Reels tab. But the Three Kings game is something that I actually do kind of believe in. And if you guys haven't heard of it yet, let me explain it. So this is a game ritual that originated on Reddit, and it's not necessarily to call on a demon or a spirit. It's to call on your own inner workings. It's like a meditative game. And some of the things that we don't like within ourselves come out, like our shadow self. And let me explain this game. So the setup involves shutting yourself in a room with two mirrors at 3:30 in the morning and seeing what happens. The mirror should be set up on two chairs facing each other while you yourself settle on a third chair placed between them. Your chair is your throne, making you the king. The mirrors are your queen and your fool. You should also be able to perceive your reflection from each side of the mirror if you have them set up appropriately. In addition to this, you place a bucket of water and a mug in front of you, just barely out of reach, and you put a fan set on low behind you. You're also supposed to take a candle and hold it and protect it while this fan is blowing behind you, and you can't let it blow out for whatever reason. And you're supposed to do this while looking straight ahead in the darkness, not at the mirrors, and just protecting your candle. And apparently they don't really say what happens next, other than you're not going to be alone and you'll be connected to the shadow side. I really don't know why someone would do this unless they were trying to like learn something about their shadow self or whatever. I don't even know. But maybe it's better off that we don't know what happens next. Another concept that I got into, which could also explain this, is the Giovanni Caputo effect. In this theory, it basically states that sensory deprivation will heighten your imagination. If you guys remember sensory deprivation tanks, which I'll have a whole other series about, if you go in there, shut off your senses, a lot of people describe it to be a psychedelic effect. Sometimes you'll hallucinate, sometimes you'll hear things, sometimes you'll feel things. So if you're taking subjects, going into a room and staring into darkness for an extended amount of time, that lack of sensory might end up causing your imagination to see something, to picture something, to, if you're looking in a mirror, to shift your face. So if you're playing these games and you see your face start to shift, boom, a myth is born. So after looking at all of these and then being able to kind of explain it with certain theories, I'm like, okay, like, it can't be that real. Like, it can't, you know, things can't actually come through the mirror. Why a mirror anyways? Aren't most mirrors man-made? But I had the craziest experience happen to me, and let me just tell you guys about it, and maybe your mind will change about mirrors as well. And this event actually changed my mind about paranormal activity in general. So there was one time that I went through a really rough breakup after 5 years, and my best friend just bought a new house. She got a big girl job, and it was kind of the perfect situation of me moving in directly with her. However, her and I during this time were like not taking the best care of ourselves. We were just like going out a lot together, having really bad relationships. I was still getting over my ex. My ex was extremely abusive, and he was doing drive-bys, and it was just a big mess of a situation. And even though her house was pretty much fine with inspection and it was adorable, it was like this little like blue cottage themed house that we ended up painting the door pink, there was a couple of weird sheds in the backyard. One of them was small and totally normal and, you know, could easily fit gardening equipment in there. The other one was massive, like a whole separate house back there. And when we walked in, it looked like someone had growing lights in there, and people had Mod Podge religious symbols and their photos and different religious quotes all along the walls. And the beginning of this haunting started with her seeing things. Like, she would come home from work and she would see shadow figures at the end of the hallway. She would sometimes scream. She would see things coming into the driveway, but we just attributed it to her being tired because she was night shift at the hospital. But everything changed when I came home one day. And like I said, her house was a fixer-upper, so her dad would come over and help her fix it a lot. And when I opened the door, I walked in, turned on the lights in the kitchen, started cooking, and I heard from the back, "Hey, baby," in a low man's voice, and I thought it was her dad, so I was like, oh, like, she'll be home later, like, blah, blah, blah. I just, like, shouted back, but then I didn't hear anything for about 15 minutes as I continued to cook. So I walked around the house, and no one was there. I immediately called her, because I thought someone had maybe broken in or was in the backyard. She comes over immediately, checks everything, and nothing's there. We can't find anything. And a couple more weeks go by of her seeing things, and I come home again, but this time with one of my really good friends to cook again. And we walk in and we hear from the back, "Hey, are there any people here?" And I look at him, I'm like, "See, did you hear that too?" Like, cause I thought that I was going crazy the first time I heard something, but finally a second person heard it too. However, he heard it in a female voice and I heard it in a male voice. So this guy who does not believe in anything paranormal immediately starts searching the premises and finds absolutely nothing. And then around this time, these spots start to form on the ceiling. And the house was totally fine before. Like I said, she had it inspected, but these little moldy black spots start to just show up across the ceiling. Okay, sorry guys, I need to correct myself twice. The first thing I need to correct myself on is that I heard it in a female voice and he heard it in a male voice. I don't know why I said it oppositely. But the other thing is that I don't mean that the spots directly started to show up on the ceiling after that event. It started to show up like with the weeks to follow that event happening. It wasn't like I heard the voice and then all of a sudden these spots started to appear. It was a very gradual thing. And at her house is when I had my first episode of sleep paralysis. You heard me. Sleep paralysis. I was sound asleep and I woke up, was not able to move. I was completely on my side and I never saw what was in the room with me, but it was petting me. And it sounded just like the voice that I had heard before. And she was talking to me and being like, "Oh, like, remember the last time we met someone named Lizzie?" The creepiest thing. I mean, just like think about sitting there and feeling someone pet you and not knowing what to do and you can't move. You're just like feeling their hand on your, I get the chills still thinking about it. And around this time, the ceilings are starting to get worse and worse and worse. And the dogs also start to act up a lot too. And my roommate had actually done a previous cleansing on her apartment that she had lived at before. So she was like, oof, maybe I should call up that woman. Maybe she should come over, come cleanse the house. Maybe that's something that's going on. And let me tell you guys, this woman calls us and she's like, "Yes, I can sense that there is something wrong in that house and it's being caused by you guys gossiping. It's being caused by negative energy going on in your guys' lives, and you guys are so low vibrational right now, you cannot do your own house cleansing. She ended up saying that a lot of the negative energy that was happening in the house was occurring because a male was doing drive-bys, which my ex had been. And she said for us to expect the rotting of the house to get a lot worse. And that's when we were looking at the ceiling like, is that what's happening? Is that really what's happening? And not even kidding, a few days later, after my ex ends up physically knocking on the door, that night, the roof collapses in one of the rooms. And if I can find a picture, I'll put it over here. So this woman comes over not that long later, like within a couple of days, with so many things in order to do a house exorcism. And I don't want to bore you guys with all those details. She put a salt ring around the house. She was taking holy water around each room. She was setting these different, I don't know if they were like nuts or dried fruits or something in all of our window seals and putting crystals out. We got these little protection necklaces, and the dogs were freaking out throughout the entire process. But we were just wondering, how did this happen? And all of this was because we didn't lock our mirrors. We didn't lock our mirrors. Apparently, whatever family was living there before, like the teenagers, had been doing some experimenting in the shed back there. They had ended up letting something in, whether that was through drug experimentation or not understanding, because they had a lot of the evil eye symbol too, not really understanding what that meant. And also probably doing like a Ouija board or something, just calling on stuff. And then once we got there, whatever thing that they had let in continued to feed off of us and the negative male presence that was doing drive-bys, and it started to cause the entire house to rot, and it was watching us through the mirrors. And they were targeting my roommate specifically because she had this whole array of decorative mirrors right in front of her bed. And apparently they were watching, like these demons or spirits or whatever, or negative entities were watching her through her window, looking at the mirrors and then seeing her in the reflection and looking for a way into her life. So creepy. And I do not care if you guys don't believe me on this story at all. Like, honestly, it's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. My friends get sick and tired of me talking about it or bringing up the story on any occasion. But honestly, I feel so bad for the girls that moved in next, because after I moved out, which was at the beginning of quarantine, and my roommate ended up buying a whole new house entirely, she ended up renting out this old house. And the girls that live there now, God bless them, they ended up asking her if it was haunted, because they started to have their own experiences there. I feel like she would benefit the most if she sold it as a haunted house, honestly. I bet someone would be interested in buying that. So this was a whole long story in order to just tell you guys to lock your mirrors, whether you believe in this or not. Better safe than sorry. Just lock your mirrors, get some holy water, just lock them. And honestly, mirrors are so powerful. We use them in psychology a lot in order to do affirmations. So we look at ourselves and it helps us believe things about ourselves if we're looking at our reflection and saying positive things. This works with manifestation and with self-love. It's honestly really cool if you use it as a specific tool. But I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about mirrors and why. Like, why does this all happen through a mirror? Like, why specifically a mirror? I still have yet to answer that question. But this was my full analysis on it, along with my personal story. Thank you guys so much for coming over from my TikTok. I hope you guys subscribe, like this video, and let me know what you guys want to hear next. I can't wait to read some of your comments on this, because kind of a crazy video. And I just want to say, I hope that you in this universe finishes this video, and I hope that you in this universe also subscribes to my account, pay my bills for me. Anyways, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.